I didn't want to do this for the next 40 years and retire at 60 or 70. I always thought that was like the great American tragedy.
You know, get in the right rooms with like-minded people. It's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best feeling in the world.
When you're walking out with a couple $100 every week and you're 16 years old, you're like, I could buy anything.
You're work optional at 31 through passive investing.
I don't have to. Work is optional for me. I can take as much time off as I'd like.
Hey, I've built this relationship with all these investors because I was selling them properties.
By not only investing into your skill sets, right? And then like trying to scale yourself as a professional. Justin, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. Corey and I are stoked to have you here, man. We've been kind of running in similar circles for a long time. I know we connected on social, and so I think it's a long time coming. You have a very interesting background, and I'm excited to share your story with our listeners. So thanks for joining us, dude.
Yeah, man, it's so cool. Like you mentioned, it's been a couple of years of just in each other's networks, kind of afar, watching you guys grow what you're doing, grow your offerings, have an awesome like mentorship program now. And, finally I was like, man, we just got to reach out. Like, why don't we know each other better? And now it's kind of evolved into this. So it's cool to see these things kind of come full circle a little bit.
Yeah, dude, it's a great thing. And I love when we can collaborate and just, get in the right rooms with like-minded people. It's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best feeling in the world. So I think we should start here. Take us back. I know you started in real estate at like 18. So you've been in the game for a while, but I do want to talk maybe pre-real estate. If there's anything that kind of started your journey. I know a lot of people have a light bulb moment when it goes off and they're like, whoa, real estate is something I need to pursue.
Yeah.
And again, there's also people that have other things that they're selling and they dive into entrepreneurship in different ways. So give us your spiel and your story.
Totally, man. My ultimate light bulb moment of getting into real estate at such a young age relative, to when most people do it, really was my parents were on my ass about getting my life together. To that point, and I was a pretty young kid, but I always liked working. I always liked making my own money. My very first job, I was 16. I was bagging groceries at Safeway. And so when you're walking out with a couple $100 every week and you're 16 years old, you're like, I could buy anything, anything I want, any chips, any candy, like any food. I could go crazy in the lunch halls like in high school. And so I always liked doing that. Now, as I kind of worked through those retail jobs, I started getting these sales roles. I worked at GNC and I really liked that. All I did was lift weights in high school and play some football, but I only played football so I could lift weights more. And so I sold supplements at GNC. I worked at a spot called Sports Authority. I sold kind of home gym equipment. And I always knew like I was pretty good at that. On the leaderboards on GNC, I was always like top 4 or 5 in the state or country, whatever it was. And I was making $1 or $2 every supplement I sold or something. And so eventually, my commissions were more than my hourly, and I was like, hey, maybe I'm kind of good at this. Then of course, 18 comes around and the college conversation comes up, and my parents were big college people. My parents never went to college, and they feel like it really stifled their growth. And maybe it did, but we always want for your kids what you didn't have. So they were really saying, hey, you got to go to college. Like, you got to figure this out. And I said, well, what if I don't go to college? What if what kind of jobs can I make good money in without going? I know I'm pretty good at sales. So what's out there? I can sell cars. I can sell insurance. And I was in the Bay Area real estate, man. And you're driving through all these houses. I'm like, I'm going to sell houses. So, when I was 18, I got my license and I sucked at it real bad for like a year. And then I suddenly got pretty good at it. And then that kind of just sprawled into my life now, where I eventually invest exclusively passively in larger commercial deals. But it was a good foray into something that I kind of stumbled into, but ended up really liking and resonating with me and my goals.
Yeah, dude, I'm very curious about the stumbling aspect and how that happened. Your work optional at 31 through passive investing. You love to travel, jiu-jitsu guy, all that kind of, it kind of all parlays into each other. That's what a lot of people want to do. They want to lift weights. They want to work out. They want to travel. They want to invest in real estate. Like, I'm finding a lot of these people run in the same circle. So like, what does actually work optional mean to you at 31? It's a young age to hit that. Ryan and I are 33, 34. Talk to us about a couple things, the work optional aspect, but then like, what does stumbling into it actually look like?
Yeah. For me, work optionality is kind of my spin on like the FIRE movement. A lot of people talk about, financial independence, retire early, and what you typically find with these people, especially high performers, right? Which everybody on this podcast, we want to surround ourselves with those people. And I found like when I would tell people, I'm like, kind of retired, I'm semi-retired or whatever, I was kind of getting these looks of like, yeah, well, like, what do you do? Well, I still work. I have my real estate investing company where we invest passively in syndications and things like that. But if I didn't want to, I don't have to. Work is optional for me. I can take as much time off as I'd like. I spent most of 2024 abroad where I was kind of, working at maybe 50% capacity. And I exercise my optionality in different ways. And sometimes I work, sometimes I don't, or I'll take a little bit easy. And when you have that optionality to it, it makes things so much more exciting. Like there's this mental kind of thing that you overcome when you don't have to be here. And like, it's okay to work hard and to be in difficult times. And, I'm still an entrepreneur. I have the ups and downs of regular entrepreneurs, but just knowing, okay, I'm taken care of regardless, it just takes this big weight off. So to me, work optionality is kind of my spin on the FIRE movement. And, I stumbled into this space, when you're 18 years old and you're selling houses in the Bay Area, I mean, $1 million homes, I didn't know how much I didn't know at that point. Looking back, I should have made way more money than I did, but I was just stumbling through things as I could. I was going listing to listing. The only thing that I knew for sure is I didn't want to do this for the next 40 years and retire at 60 or 70. I always thought that was like the great American tragedy. I'm like 70 years old, who knows what the retirement age will be by that time. They're always pushing that thing up anyways. So it was always like, how can I expedite that process? And of course, real estate kind of naturally fit into that buy box for me.
Yeah, totally, man. So you're living it's funny you say living the dream, but I do think that you're kind of an inspiration for a lot of people who want to get to this point where you are work optional and you have, and exactly what you're saying, you have options. Talk to us about some of the specific moves you made, because people listening are probably like, dude, I would love to be in Justin's shoes. I'd love to be work optional at 31.
Yeah.
I know you were selling the real estate, but how did you turn that active income that you were making actually into passive? And it sounds like you did pretty big deals right out the gate. So talk to us about that.
Yeah. So, and being in the Bay Area was a big part of that because I can tell you, when I was 18 years old, this was 12 or 13 years ago, I kind of accidentally had this niche with investors. And so I kind of knew what investors were looking for at the time. I saw the lives they live, man. I was there hustling, selling houses. I was calling them, emailing them like, hey, we got offers. Like, can I talk to you? And they'd call me back like 2 weeks later. Like, hey, I'm on an island somewhere. What do you need? Like, dude, I'm selling your house. Like, I need to talk to you. And I thought to me, like, that's what I wanted. Now, I can tell you when I first started selling homes to investors, a standard cash on cash return that people would look for in the Bay Area was like 5%. I mean, now if you see a house for 5% in the Bay Area, like you buy it, you don't care where it is, but that was like the standard then. Then the year after, people were doing deals at 4. Then it was like, yeah, 2 is okay. Then people were like, hey, if I'm breaking even, I'm happy. And now, you can't go in there without bleeding $1,000 a month and just hope that appreciation bails you out in a few years. So to me, I kind of saw that market change to where I wasn't sure if buying up those single family homes was kind of a feasible strategy for me. I didn't like the return structures. I didn't like how big the portfolio would need to be for me to feel like I had enough. So naturally you start to look at, is it fourplexes? Is it duplexes? I find now, maybe you guys see the same thing. Those almost sell at more of a premium because people think that they're better deals or something like that, but they have the same economics generally. So how can I just go bigger, go better, and hit this faster? Because work optionality is the goal. But the second part of that is as fast as I can comfortably do it. So naturally looked into kind of bigger deals. Well, okay, what's stopping me from doing large apartments, 20 units, 30 units, 200 units? And then once you get into that world, it's the beautiful world of real estate. Once you kind of have an interest in something, it just feeds you that content all the time. And so eventually found myself in some networking groups and some paid masterminds, in the circles with the right people, in the rooms with the right people. And yeah, I started doing big deals after that. We have this saying in our space that, nobody goes from commercial to residential. Everybody goes from residential to commercial, or they skip right over and go to commercial. And it's for a good reason. The economics are a lot more favorable in my experience.
So how did you fit in that area? Were you doing the deal finding, the analysis, the underwriting, the operational, or are you more on the like, hey, I've built this relationship with all these investors because I was selling them properties. Now I have an opportunity where I'm partnering with operators and you can bring the capital to me. You can trust me with your cash and we're going to grow it. And by doing that, you get a limited partner or general partnership stake in it. Ryan and I do that now. So I ask genuinely because I think people can fast forward their
Sure.
journey if they know how to connect the dots and they know how to really like get people to know, like, and trust you, and then also
Yeah.
follow through.
Yeah. So if somebody's out there thinking of like the syndication space, right? So let's break it down in some of the verticals that you can fill. First, right, there's like your GP and your LP. I was, of course, a general partner. At this point, I'm a limited partner, and we kind of do co-investments together. But those are the two kind of things where you break down: do I want to be a GP or do I want to be an LP? If you want to be an LP, pretty simple path. You just need the money, and then you go and build the connections and know how to underwrite deals, know how to look for deals. That's kind of a different process. If you want to be a GP, within that, there's a couple verticals that are key. First is you could be essentially the deal finder or the analyst, where you are underwriting deals all day. If you're very detail oriented, if you love to do lease audits and look at comps and like value properties and do financial projections, like that's probably a pretty good place for you to be. The second part of that is asset management. Once you buy the property, somebody's got to take your underwriting and bring it to life. So you got to manage managers, manage contractors, manage construction. So you're dealing with a lot of little stuff, chasing down invoices, like organizations, and really squeezing all the profit you can out of that deal. And the third category is like capital. All these deals don't exist without money. So what I do now is kind of that vertical, which is bring the money. Once the underwriter says we have a good deal and the asset manager says, yes, I can run this deal and bring these projections to life, you go to your capital people, and those people kind of bring the cash to close on the deal. Now, when I first got started, I had no money and I had no investors. I was still, 20 in my low 20s, like nobody wanted to invest their money with me. So I underwrote deals like crazy. I underwrote thousands of deals my first year. And it took me about a year to find something that worked. Then once I bought it, I did the asset management. So I kind of filled those first two buckets, knowing that in the end, it would make me a better capital raiser, a better fund manager. And I've used that experience to avoid a lot of really bad deals in the past couple of years. So those are kind of the general verticals that you fill. And it really depends on your current abilities, what you want to do, and your strengths, because they're all kind of different strengths. Like most capital raisers hate underwriting deals. So you probably pretty much know where you might fit in from a personality perspective.
Yeah, talk to us about the flow of these deals in terms of like, what are you looking for now? Maybe just talk to us about like what your portfolio looks like, what states you're looking in, the size of some of these deals. I'm very curious about that.
Yeah. So, when people ask me like, what states do I invest in? My only real requirement is I do like landlord friendly states that are growing. I invest in municipalities that are growing, and I know why people are there. I have this kind of story that I like to tell people, which my very first mentor in this space, he crushes it in like small border towns. He lives up in Michigan. So he has some towns that you'd never heard of and probably never will hear of. There's like 2,000 people that live there. There's 2 apartment buildings and he owns both of them. And those properties crush it. But for me, I just can't see why people live there. I can't see the story. Is it growing? Is it not? Are people going to get up and leave one day? So I don't do stuff like that. I tend to invest in or around the large municipalities where I get it. Jobs are going there. It's business friendly. It's landlord friendly. Like they're growing. So I'm pretty location agnostic as long as it fits some of those boxes. And in terms of deal size, I think a lot of people have this vision of doing these really, really big deals, the 200-300, class A new development type properties. But ultimately, you want to do deals where you have a couple things. First is some type of scale. Yes, the reason why people like 100-unit deals is because you can scale your employment there. You typically will see 1 full-time office and 1 full-time maintenance person for every 100 units. So if you have like a 70-unit property, it's kind of tough. You'd kind of overpay to have somebody full-time on site. You'd kind of be understaffed if you had part-time. Like it's kind of a weird spot. So you want to think of like the scale of operations and the size, but you also want to think of the current buyer and future buyers of the property. If the current buyer or the current owner is a very sophisticated operator who's buying 200-300 unit deals, is there a lot of operational inefficiencies to fix? Probably not, relative to like buying from a mom and pop. Likewise, when you go to sell the deal, you probably want to sell these institutions. They're okay paying a little bit more. So you kind of have to see a lot of those things. But, high level, I'm fairly flexible in what I do as long as it kind of checks the boxes of scale in the areas that I want to be in and be known for.
Yeah, I think Rye, I was jumping over you on the last time. I know you want to jump in here. What do you got for us?
I have a couple things that I want to chat about. One,
Yeah.
I want to touch on 2 things. I think it's so interesting because the more conversations that we have in this space are when you get around high performers, they invest in themselves.
Mhm.
And I know I'm kind of scaling it back to a couple minutes ago in the podcast, but it's so interesting when you're talking about a 31-year-old work optional guy.
Mhm.
He was able to do this, and Justin, you were able to do this by not only investing into your skill sets, right? And then like
Mhm.
trying to scale yourself as a professional, but then also personal development and getting in the
Yeah.
rooms with the right people. And I think a lot of people are afraid to spend the money to do that, right? And I
Yeah.
think it's just so interesting. The earlier you find out, or the earlier you take the leap to do this, we found
Mhm.
people reach just a level of success quicker. And
Yeah.
instead of waiting till your mid 40s to stack up cash and try to get around the right people. And at that point, you're probably starting to preserve cash a little bit more and like protect what you
Sure.
have. So I don't know that there's a perfect time for it, but I just wanted to highlight that it's for the people listening. Like if you are thinking about putting time, energy, and effort into something that you think is going to get you to financial independence, surround
Mhm.
yourself with the people that have done it successfully. And we kind of beat a dead
Yeah.
horse there, and we talk about it every episode, but you did it again. I also want to talk about the idea of work optionality. And I think it sounds sexy to people. And I'm wondering if you
Sure.
can kind of break that down. Some people, they'll factor in, they're like, okay, my expenses are 60,000 a year, right? So I need
Sure.
to in order to draw the 4% rule, I need 1.5 million invested
Sure.
in the stock market, right? So like, what's
Yeah.
that number
Yeah.
for you? Don't give me your whole financial picture, but to
Yeah.
know, when did you know you were work optional, right? And was there
Yeah.
a number that you had to hit to say, okay, I'm good now?
Sure. Yeah. So to me, my bare minimum number, granted, I'm a young guy, it's me, my girl, and our small dog. I don't have kids, family, stuff like that. Was about 3,500 a month. That's like, and that's not really the life, right? Like that's kind of, I will be okay. And I don't have to live in like bars on the window kind of places. So to me, once I kind of hit that figure, I felt at least good enough that, okay, I can kind of drop the ball on a couple things later this year and like still be okay. Alex Ramosi talks about this a lot. He talks about his first 100,000, and he said when he saw that in the account, he's like, do you understand? Like we could not work and really, really screw up for like 2 years and be okay. And so you could do that, or you can keep building on it and kind of keep building this cushion for yourself. So obviously I didn't stop right there. But when it comes to the 4% rule, I the 4% rule is kind of the average, right? Like that's what they tell you to do in mass. If you want the life that the average has, that's the best way to do it. Like stay that course. But if you're listening to this podcast, I assume you probably don't want that. Like you want something more. So yeah, you got to get alternative. Now I'll tell you my strategy high level is there's two broad stroke types of deals that I invest in the syndication space. There's growth and then there's cash flow. Now, without getting too into the weeds, I require, yes, both cash flow in all my deals. But generally speaking, there was like a growth period in my portfolio where if you have $100,000 right now, and you go invest it in a deal that has a 10% cash on cash return, but let's say it's kind of in a rural market, it doesn't really appreciate, there's not really like a growth factor to it. All right, you're going to make 10 grand a year, right? It's not nothing, but you're not walking away from anything at that point. So you're going to have this phase in your portfolio where you have to grow. Like you have to turn that 100 grand into 200, into 400, into 800. Now you got $1 million and you're going to go invest it in 10% cash on cash. Like, yeah, you don't care about the upside. Like you could be done. So, broad strokes, you got your growth within your cash flow. So to me, it was very heavy growth in the beginning. And then when I kind of, I had my amount of cash that I needed, for me, the figure was 8%. If you invest your cash into the lowest risk profile, largest, most diversified type of debt funds out there, 8% all day. Like that's a pretty conservative measure. The debt fund I'm invested in, I think last year did like eight and a half. So a little bit better. So to me, whatever your number is you want per year, you can choose to do it off of 4%, which means you need twice as much invested, or you can choose to do it off of 8% and look at things like debt funds that'll kind of bridge that gap a little bit quicker. So that was like the high level of it. There's this portion where you want to grow first, and then you want to focus on your cash flows. Because if you focus on the cash flows right away, like it just takes you longer to get there.
I love this, man. We have a deal, a fund out in Arizona called 10Y, and we call it 10
Yeah.
years to retirement.
Yeah.
And basically, the founder of it is a tech guy. He sold his company for hundreds of millions of dollars. But what he realized is the exponentiality of real estate. And I'm not going to explain the entire thing here, but basically, the fund is going through 5 deal cycles of building ground up development projects and rolling the projects into the next project over a span of 3 projects so that you can depreciate all of them, right?
Yeah.
That's how you exponentially every 2 years double your money. And the goal is that after 5 deal cycles, you're doubling your money to the 5th time. And you have an opportunity to like 30x your cash. That's if everything goes right. But the point I'm trying to make here is that we're focusing in different areas on different things. We focus on, in your 20s and 30s, you should be focused on the appreciation and trying to double your money and trying to build that, because then when you have $1 million, you have $2 million, you have $4 million, you can actually live off the cash flow. But living off the cash flow of $100,000 invested, you can't really do it. And not in the real estate game that I'm working in, where you're at that 5 to 15%, right? Or 5 to 20%. So I love the focus there. I think that's perfect. I want to talk about, like, I didn't even realize, Justin, we had a conversation prior to this interview of, like, you being able to out and go to raise capital, and you sometimes bring your own capital to the table, but you don't, and you end up getting LP stake in these deals. Can you talk about, like, some of the inner workings of how that works and how much capital you have to bring in to get you a certain percentage, and just everything? And are you doing 506B or C? I know it's a lot of information, but I want to kind of get some detail from you.
Yeah. So essentially what I do is, I'm all on the LP side now. What happens is, generally speaking, a general partnership, they're out there looking for deals, right? They finally find one, they put it under contract, they do their inspections, they qualify and sign on their loans, they pay the deposits, all that kind of stuff. Once it clears their hurdles, now it's time they got to raise money, right? They got to go 20% down, 30% down, whatever they're going to do. If you're buying a $15 million property, you could have to bring $8 or $9 million down, or whatever it's going to be. So when it's time to raise money, they have a couple options. They can go to their subset of investors, which they definitely will do. And they'll say, hey, let's just say they're raising $10 million. We're raising $10 million for this deal. Here are the projections and the business plan and the benefits, the risk, all that kind of stuff. If you'd like to invest, the minimum is $50,000 and your projections are this, or X, Y, and Z. And then they'll probably come to groups like mine. And they'll say, hey, Justin, we're having this deal. Here are the business plans. Here's all this. Do you like it? And I'll do the checks myself again. I get about 30 to 60 deals a month that I look at. Last year, I did 3 deals. So to me, it's a very, very, very rigorous process. But if I do like it, we're going to commit somewhere between 1 million and 5 million to that deal. So, when somebody comes to the table with $1 million or $5 million, we can make a significant portion of what we call their capital stack. And so with that comes a little bit better terms and a little bit more leverage and a little bit more kind of negotiation power. So if we like the deal, I'll say, yes, I think we can bring, let's say, 5 million to this deal. If you're going to pay out X to your regular investors, I want Y, because I want my investors to probably make a little bit more projection, or maybe they're getting preferred returns. Maybe their cash is more liquid. Maybe there's no hurdle. Like, there's going to be some kind of value that we negotiate on behalf of our investors. In most cases, it's actually more profitable to invest with our fund versus investing just directly into the deal. Plus, you get that extra layer of due diligence. Plus, you get, us working on your behalf. So you don't really have to deal with the spot, and you know what to look at, right? Like, we know what to look at on our legal docs and the decks. I can sniff out bullshit pretty quickly when somebody's telling me something, when maybe a lot of people haven't really worked that muscle a lot. And I've been a GP, so I kind of get how they're seeing deals. So when we make that investment, we'll go to our investors and we'll raise that, $5 million. We all invest as one entity, and then the entity gets paid, and then we pay out the investors pro rata based on what they've invested. So it's really the same kind of vehicle of getting into deals. It just kind of adds an extra layer, which actually increases the value of the investment when you do the types of deals that we do.
Got it. Okay. So I don't think I got this the first time we chatted. So basically, your investors invest with you as one LLC, and then you're the one paying out your investors, as opposed to your investors they don't go into the deal for 50 grand or into the deal for 100 grand. They go to you with that money, and then you invest with your capital stack as an LP. And that makes so much sense. I didn't even honestly know that you could do this. And I think you're kind of a testament, Justin, to putting in the work for 5 to 10 years. You build up, I'm really, really good at this. I've created the relationships. Now I have a track record that you can follow and you can trust me. And I think that's the part that people skip. It's not I'm not trying to toot our own horn here for Ryan and I, but we did the free content on social for 5 years. So we
Yeah.
did free, podcast every single week,
Yep.
a social post a day, 5 years. And then we built up this repertoire, if you will, a virtual resume. And now people are like, oh guys, like I've seen you all over the place. Of course I'd like for you to teach me how to get into real estate or potentially invest with you. But it takes that I'm going to put in these hours to build up like your kind of, I guess the word would be just, you already used it, repertoire, but just like your force field of like, this is what I do. And I can confidently say this is what I do because I've done it time over time. And I think that's why people trust you. And you also have to build up the skills of being a trustworthy person. I'm curious about if you've ever had to have any really tough conversations and what your mantra is or what you think about as like, you're like, this is not a small thing to have people trust you with their money. I think about that all the time. I sleep good at night because I know that the people that I trust are good people. And, you kind of have to weed out some things that may or may not work and get rid of shiny object syndrome. But I guess my question for you is like, talk to us about the mindset of like having other people trust you with their capital.
Yeah. I think, the confidence comes from me being there, right? So the term for what I do now is called fund management, kind of in our space. And honestly, there's a lot of really bad fund managers, and they're fund managers because they have a lot of friends, or like they're high performing at their job. So they have other high performers and they kind of all invest together. And a couple of years back, I saw a lot of fund managers investing in some really bad deals, and they're deals that I wouldn't touch with your 10-foot pole. Like not even mine. Like they were deals that I would stay so far away from, but because these people had these really big networks or maybe big social media platforms, because they did something else, they were raising like massive amounts of money. So to me, I know my skill set. I know how I see deals. I know the process that I put a deal through to stress test before it makes it to my investors. So to me, it's understanding that if something, and when something does go sideways, like if you invest in 100 deals, I mean, come on, something's going to go sideways. No deal ever shakes out perfectly. I know that I can kind of put a stamp on it and say, guys, like I did everything I possibly could to remove risk from this deal. I picked this deal as the best deal at the time, with the information that I had. And if you're upfront with investors about that, they get it. They get we're all kind of making this investment together. I also invest my own money and my own time into these deals. And the way that my compensation works as a fund manager is I really don't get paid until minimum investor return hurdles are met. So many times, if something does go wrong, I'm not even making money. So, and I feel like it should be that way. So to me, there's a couple of checks and balances that make me feel good at night and make me feel good about my decisions, that when I do put my stamp on a deal, to me, there's nobody out there that could have done a more thorough job in that moment with the information that I had that could do something that I didn't do, or maybe that I overlooked. So I feel good about the deals that I do. And that comes from repetition. It comes from deal flow, and it comes from just being in that GP position and knowing what's inflated, what's not, and what's actually risk adjusted deal and what's not.
Yeah. I think you become a master of your craft. What's it? Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours into something, right? And you talked about it in your first, I don't know, earlier on the episode, but your first couple deals or a couple years in this thing, you were analyzing 100 deals that year, right? Before you found one good one. People won't spend the time to do that, dude. They'll do like 10 here, 10 there, and then they kind of stop. And you're just a testament of putting in the work. And though it didn't cash out or perform for you, or you didn't basically take the leap after 100 deal analyses, if you will, or like underwritings. It's just a testament to you putting your head to the grindstone and keep going. And I think a lot of people will give up early on. We had a wholesaler on the other day too, and we kind of talked about this. It takes a while to find a deal and in anything, and people just give up after it gets hard, right? So
it's funny you say that, because I'll be on like forums, whether they're investor forums or like Reddit or like wherever I'm at, and people will always talk about that. They'll say like, can't find any good deals right now. It's like, yeah, that's the point. Like, that's what makes them good deals. Like they're not supposed to be so, like, they're supposed to be few and far between. That's what makes a good deal like a really good deal and like a valuable thing. I always like this thought process that if it was easy to do, it wouldn't be valuable. Like nobody would pay you for it. It wouldn't be profitable. And if everybody could do it, like it's a useless skill. And, I think this is the second time I've mentioned Alex Hormozy, but I don't follow him that much. He's just coming up a lot in this episode. He always talks about like when things get really tough, that's another hurdle that most people will not cross. So if you're able to cross that, you're into like elite fields already. Like every hurdle you cross, you're getting more and more elite in your field, and you're kind of weeding out beyond what other people have done. So again, speaking like Ryan, you mentioned your circle and your network. Like, yeah, if you're in a circle and network of people constantly telling you, oh, it takes too long. Like there's no good deals. Like I got to wait for interest rates. Like you're going to think that way and you're just going to give up. So, you have to be in the right rooms with the right people who are just pushing through and not really taking excuses as an answer.
100%, man.
Yeah.
I just got one last thing I want to talk about. The book, I know you mentioned Hormozy a couple times. I love his podcast, The Game, but then also his book, $100 million offers, and then $100 million leads after that. Like, dude, I can tell you read them because I actually recently, we went through this and I more read it Audible. I read it as I was driving, right? Listening to it, but he gets it, man. Give everything away for free. Build an audience, build a personal brand, and then it all comes full circle. But you have to be doing the right things when the doors are closed, the lights are off. Like you got to continue to sharpen your craft, because then when people come to you, you have to be able to provide for that offer and deliver, right? So one thing I did want to talk about too, and I know I mentioned, I'm not trying to keep scaling back, but I love talking personal finance, right? And like the FIRE movement, that's kind of what started it all for us, right? And so just to be able to see where you've gotten from starting with the core of that is so cool. Can you talk about your 6 steps to 6 figures of passive income that you mentioned? Because I just want to provide some actionable insights for people listening, like maybe things that they can go do to build a roadmap for themselves. Yeah,
totally. So I'll give you a pretty high level of it because it's a presentation I give, I'd say maybe once a quarter or something like that. And I'm not going to take 30 minutes to go through it, but generally speaking, the key steps, you got to figure out what your FIRE number is, right? Like your freedom number. People call it freedom number, FIRE number, whatever it's going to be. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the show, my kind of bare bones number was like $3,500. Maybe yours is probably higher if you have family, stuff like that. But you have to figure out what that is. You need to know exactly where you're going and be able to build this timeline out of when you can get there so that you can pick like the best strategies to do it. Because there's a lot of times where maybe you're taking unnecessary risk because you might have already crossed that threshold and you don't really need to push your chips on the table as much as you're doing. So you need to be really, really focused on like exactly where you're going. Like, what's that number? And then how am I going to get there? For me, I mentioned it was debt funds. So to me, I knew 8% was kind of the figure that I needed. So I need to push until I can back off, hit my number at that 8% mark. Then you have to grow before you focus on your cash flow. Like invest in the right deals that are going to grow your equity until you have enough pot of cash that you can go and put into your high cash flowing deals. I mean, after that, you're really set. The other things that I talk about a lot are optimizing for your lifestyle. I always feel like you have to start with the end in mind, where I've passed on a lot of good opportunities because they weren't the right opportunities. The right opportunity, in my opinion, is location agnostic. So I can move around pretty freely. I can live abroad. I can just live from my phone, whatever it's going to be. And it doesn't require my time. So very good example. There was like a vending machine route here in Kansas City that was for sale. And like, the numbers look good. The cash flows are good. But do I want to spend my time stocking vending machines? Like, no, at that time I didn't. So it's like, I'm not going to buy this, even if it's a good deal, a good return. It doesn't fit what I want. A good deal is not always the right deal. So start with that end in mind. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who have like gyms or restaurants or something like that. And they always talk about that, man, like I just feel like this business is anchoring me to this town. Like I just want to get out of here. But if I leave, the business isn't really set up that way yet. I got to keep doing it. So don't get anchored to something like that if that's not the life you want, if you want agnostic and freedom of movement. And then likewise, your time, going back to like the vending machine thing, when I was reading up and studying on that stuff, it was like 1 hour of work per every vending machine you have per week or something like that is kind of the rule of thumb. Like, okay, well, do you want to have 40 hours of work on your plate in 10 years? Then don't buy 40 vending machines, so kind of start off with that because like somebody mentioned, shiny object syndrome, there's a lot of cool stuff to invest in. And I get excited about all of it, but I purposely have to stay very hyper-focused because jumping around isn't going to get you there faster.
Yeah, man. And I think sometimes it takes actually jumping around and going through it to understand that jumping around doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because if you're a ADD entrepreneur, I think is to speak about Hermosi, I think that's what he says. Like, which I think that Ryan and I have been, and now we've learned that like, no, let's go back to the one thing. But here's the thing, dude, it all works. It all works. Yeah. Flipping houses works. Yeah. Wholesaling works. Rentals works. Airbnb, boutique hotel, syndications. Yeah. It all works. All this stuff works. But it's like, who are you with? Who are you partnering with? Are you going to take the time and energy and effort to focus on this thing? Or are you just like trying to throw money at something randomly? So I think like this comes down to the focus and like you said, having the end in mind. And if you have the end in mind, then what business works for you? And maybe it is vending machines, dude. Like maybe that is the thing. But if you don't do it for 5 years, I feel like that's a good time frame. And Ryan, I don't know, I think that's 10,000 hours is 5 years of like 40 hours a week. I'm pretty sure, but that's like the number I come up with. If you don't do something for 5 years, maybe 3, you're not really going to know anyway if it works, because it takes you that time to get through the mud.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. A lot of times when I get on a call with somebody who wants to invest in real estate, right? Which is like every single person wants to invest in real estate. It's just like the niche they want to pursue and how serious they really are, if they want to be active or passive, all these things. It's always this question of, well, I don't know what I want to do. I might want to buy houses, flip houses, invest in syndications, all this stuff. Okay, it's great. It's fine to not have that path set, but just know whatever path you stick to, you got to stick to it. So if you work full time and you're tired at the end of every week, do you want to go look at houses all weekend? Or go send out letters all weekend and then go meet a seller? Or then like you got to do all this stuff for manage a contractor. Like, do you really want to do that? Because if you don't, and you spend a year doing it, it's almost a waste of a year, because you're not going to get what you need in a year. But you don't want to taper out and say, oh my God, I'm so tired because I thought I was going to go flip houses on the weekends, but now I'm really busy and life got in the way. Well, life always gets in the way. Something's always coming up. So be very, very, very realistic about your time and your energy commitments. Is it going to be passive? Then great, like do passive stuff. If you want to be active, just know, it's going to take longer than you think to be successful. It's going to be inconvenient for you to do it. But if you can push through those things, it can be very lucrative. So I think it's really important to just be very, very, very realistic about how you want to spend the next, call it 10 years of your life. Because if I don't want to be flipping homes in 10 years, I'm not going to flip a home today, because it's just not going to serve me.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. And I think about this all the time. So I want to talk about the active versus the passive income, and then like how you're deploying funds when they come in, right? So you have your active as the syndication type model, we'll call it, like basically what we talked about in investing in deals. But the passive side of things, to be not only work optional, but to work from wherever, right? There's other things that you can be investing in. Do you allocate or earmark a certain dollar amount to the stock market, to crypto, to things that are, quote unquote passive, where it's like you can do it from your phone? Yeah. Just on the side of your active?
Yeah, I do. Now, what I will say is it's more recent that I've done that, because again, I think I'm a very big believer in staying hyper-focused in what you do. This is a saying, I heard it somewhere. I don't know if maybe I should be giving somebody credit, but it's like, you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want. So like, what's the thing that you want? For me, it was real estate. I wanted a real estate portfolio that would buy me the life that I wanted. Okay. After I kind of had a certain level of that, I'm also a big believer in concentration makes you rich, diversification keeps you rich. So, okay, at a certain point, it's time to diversify. I do invest in the stock market. Right now, the S&P 500 is so overvalued. I don't think any wealth manager will tell you otherwise. I invest in politician stocks. So I follow the Nancy Pelosi trader and stuff like that, and I buy what they buy, and it's crushing it. So I like that. I have some in Bitcoins and some cryptos, but it's, I just kind of throw money at it. I don't really track it or follow it like I should. It's a very small percentage of my allocation. But the thing about like real estate and being a passive investor is you can achieve a lot more diversification than you think. If you don't have to be there at the property and manage the day-to-day, you can invest in different asset classes, in different geographies, different business plans, like different terms, short-term deals or longer-term deals. Like you can do a lot of stuff before you exhaust that niche. So, I don't think it's really necessary, but yeah, I do invest in other stocks and things like that as they come up.
Got it, man. So Justin, what's next for you, bro? What do you want to do? Like,
Man.
work optional 31, like by the time you're 41, dude, you might have your own island. Like, who knows? Like, or maybe that's not your style. Like, what do you want to do next? Is
Yeah.
it grow your real estate portfolio? Is it, are you leaning into the jujitsu stuff? Like, it seems like you're in a place where you can really actually make that decision and not have it come
Sure.
from a place of desperation, which I think is the ultimate goal for anyone. So
Yeah.
what's next for you?
Man, I don't think I'm, I know I'm fairly young at 31, but I don't think I'm going to be taking, professional jujitsu stuff anytime soon. I train 3 or 4 days a week and I'm like beat up at this point. Body of playing sports, and yeah, I'm all beat up on that. So I do it as a hobby. What's next for me? I'm going to keep investing passively in deals. I'm going to keep helping other people invest passively in deals. I truly believe that if people really knew what I know about this field and how to invest smart and passively in deals, there's not many people who would not participate, right? There's obviously a financial hurdle you have to get over. Once you hit that hurdle, like there's nobody who shouldn't do it and be exposed to this. So I'm very, very passionate about what I do in that sense. And I really love doing it. It's what I get up every day to do. I spend half my days talking to investors, the other half my days, with guys like you or looking at deals. And that's what I'm really good at. It's what I really love. So I'm going to keep building the passive income portfolio, keep helping others invest passively in deals. I'll do jujitsu a couple days a week. I have a competition coming up here next Saturday. So, I'll keep doing those to help keep me honest in my training. But that's kind of it, man. My big focuses are the business, my relationship with my girlfriend and my small dog, my physical health, and jujitsu. Like if it doesn't fit in that category, I'm probably ignoring it for now.
What's one piece of advice you'd give to somebody who's looking to become work optional by the age of 31?
Man, if you want an unconventional life, you have to do the unconventional stuff. You've got to earn your money unconventionally. You've got to earn more money quicker. Like, the sad reality of America nowadays is like the middle class is gone. It's been eroding for years. It's gone. Like you have to pick what side of the fence you want to be on. It's much better on the rich side. Like you want to be upper class. So look for ways that you can make that money and then make your exit. I mean, you really can't be work optional at 31 if you're going to, make 20 or 30 grand a year, but that's like what it is now. That average corporate drone millionaire at, reasonable age, like it doesn't exist. So look for ways that's going to actually make your life possible. And chances are you're going to have to think alternatively. It's funny, Ryan, you mentioned something. I meant to come back to it, like kind of surrounding yourself with the right people. I made a post one time about like the 8% debt fund or something like that. And some guy told me how stupid I was because the only way to invest safely is the 4% rule. You got to get rid of those people. Like you got to just block them, like get them out of your network. You have to surround yourself with people who have similar goals to you. And then you have to realize if you want an unconventional life, you got to do unconventional stuff. And then you got to get after it, man. You got to get after it when it sucks, when it's boring, when it's hard, years and years and years. You have to keep at whatever your plan is. And then eventually it kind of all starts to come together.
100%, dude. And I think we already talked about this, but you do have to try things. And
Yeah.
this is not to scare anyone, but your youth you can fail so many times, man, and you're still going to be kicking and you get up and try it again, as long as you're not dropping your last dollar on something and even if you do, that's the thing. Like you still have time. You got to wake up and go do something unconventional again. Today, there are so many ways to make money with the little computer in your pocket. And most people just won't go do the thing that they need to do. And that's put themselves out there. It's by the time you decide to go and do this 5-10 years from now, like the next thing will happen and the personal brand might not be the thing. It's like, you should have done this. And so it's just evolving with the times. And I just want to say that like a lot of people will listen to the podcast and things like that. And they'll want to be one of us and be in this room. And I don't say one of us, that I say it tongue in cheek, but like be someone that has a robust network, that is dabbling in other things, is paving an unconventional path. Right. But then they never do it because it's scary and it's hard and it's just finding a way to do it and just kind of sucking it up and figuring it out. That's the only way we've done it. We all had the leaps, the hurdles, the imposter syndrome. We all did. And we were just like, I got to fight through it. Lucky enough, I think Corey and I had each other because we both had very similar mindsets and we pushed each other through. Where, some people, you do have to go alone. Like, look at you, dude. You did it by yourself. And trust me, it's way harder. But it's it's incredible to have conversations with guys like you that have done it themselves, because I'm just like, man, like you truly picked yourself up and just said, I'm going to figure it the hell out. And you did.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll leave you with this one last question. If you lost everything today You have all the knowledge in your brain, maybe the grit, the toughness, all that, all the experience, right? But you lost every dollar. How would you go build it back up to maybe where you are today or even better based on what you know?
I would stay in the commercial real estate field, right? It's kind of a cheat code because I've been doing it. So you kind of have this little leg up. 2025 and maybe in 2026 will be the absolute best years of our generation to invest in commercial real estate. That's what all the data tells me. I would fight with every last breath that I had to claw my way into some great deals this year, because this is going to be the generational year for people. The way that distressed debt is shaking out, the way that it's harder to raise capital nowadays. The last two investments that I made were with operations teams who have never taken on outside investors because they're so damn good at what they do. They've never had to. But because capital is so much harder to raise right now, they want to take on outside investors. So they're giving opportunities to like funds like ours. The market is turning so heavily in the favor of the investor and the buyer in the commercial real estate space that if you're not in the game every single day, you're never even going to notice. I talk to people every day who tell me they're waiting for the market to crash before they invest in real estate. It's been here. You just don't know because you're not in the game every day. So I would double down in commercial real estate. This year especially is going to be a phenomenal year for it. But you have to find that high value skill. For me, raising money is a high value skill. If I didn't have that, I would look for something else, look for what people need. But you got to just stick to your thing. And like we said, you just got to get after it. You got to do it all the freaking time, and then you'll get good.
I think the moral of the story here that you're sharing with us is like, be willing to swim upstream. And I got to give somebody like my brother credit. He's 22. He dropped out of college and he like didn't want to go that route, and he didn't want to be in a cubicle, and he's doing, he's working at a bar. He's appointment setting. He's trading. He's day trading, and he's making a living that is pretty nice for that age. And he's always said he wanted to be different. I told him, like, you're not different until you actually do the things that it takes to be different. You don't just say that. But now he's like, okay, I'm starting to get my footing. Like, I'm starting to realize, like, yeah, I don't want to work a desk job. All right, well, then you really have to get after it and be different. Yes. And I think that's the kind of your story a little bit here too, Justin. So this was awesome, man. I really appreciate your time. This is just fun to get to know another like-minded individual. And now you got us in your network, whether you like it or not, brother. So what is the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to learn more, maybe invest with you, or just a network?
Yeah, I'm really active on LinkedIn. I'm on there every single day. Justin Moy. If you want to go to my website, it's presidentsclubinvestors.com. I got a few downloads there. I have a work optionality calculator you can download, so you can kind of map out that journey for you, the same journey that I took. I say most people can kind of hit their financial freedom number within 10 years. Then you get a couple bonuses there, but you got to go to the site and check those things out because they kind of rotate. But LinkedIn, I'm super active. Message me on there. I'll respond within a day. I promise it. Or go to the website if you want to download something more passive and just kind of see what I got going on.
Love it, man. Thanks for taking the time today. We appreciate it. And we're definitely going to stay in touch.
Yeah, perfect. Good to see you guys. Good to sit down.